Excellent. Excellent. Well, so far we're hitting 1,000. Um, Today, Patty and I will be doing our darndest um, to roll out annual reports made easy to you. Um, the trick is this, is that we are both getting better from being sick. And Liz was going to do this presentation, and we were just going to serve as backup, but Miss Liz has had a family emergency, and so um, as I often say, your bad luck, you got the director. So that's what happens when you call on a Friday afternoon and I'm the only one there and we figure out your problems. But we will make it happen and get you through this. The first thing to know, as I'm going to share some information with you, um, but let me go ahead and give you the rundown of what I see this hour looking like beyond us scrambling to do our best. Um, we are going to give you a list of information that you should gather up. And when I share that with you, Patty is also going to put that link into the chat and you can click on that. It is a Google Doc, so you're going to be able to view it. And I will show you how to save that for yourself. And then we will walk you through the state report and the system grant questionnaire. And both of those annual reports are a little bit different, but not a ton. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to share this one, I suppose. I don't really see what I want there. There's what I want. Share it. Share that bad boy. Okay, here we go. This is the information that you'll need to gather so that you can easily do your annual reports. Oh, I can't. Is that better? Or does it need to be a little bigger yet?
I could use a little bigger. I have old people eyes.
And I have sick woman eyes. Okay, here we go. Um, you will need your budget, your end of year financial report. You should be able to get this from your library treasurer. How do I want to do this? I guess I'll click here and just do it this way. Like you all are in my wrong spot. There we go. Okay, here we go. I think I can do it this way now. There we go. Sorry. You're going to need your mill levy, the amount of taxes you received in 2024, any additional city support. Oh, hold on just a minute.
Just like you all, when you have that occasional work at home, dogs, telephones, front doors, husbands. It could be any of the four. I would imagine it's probably packages arriving at her front door.
It's checks to sign so we can pay bills at CKLS. Of course, let's see what else happens when I'm
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Um, where it says your municipal clerk will have the following information, is that the same for city libraries and township libraries?
Township clerk for you, Abby. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. They're going to have this information. If they tell you they don't have it, they have it. They need to have it. They do. Any additional city revenue, any money that you may have gotten. So like Cocker City doesn't have a mill levy. All of their support comes from additional city revenue. The same with Randolph Decker and Clyde. Then any indirect city support, and you need the dollar amounts of those things. So that would be, do they pay the insurance for the building or for the contents? Like in Osborne, the library director is paid by the city. So that would be one of those things that's there. Do they pay for maintenance? Do they pay for snow removal? You also want to have a list of those things so that way you have it ready for next year. You're going to need to know how much state aid you received and how it was spent. And then you're going to need to know how much CKLS money you received and how you spent it. And the CKLS money, and so I'll go back to the state aid money that we receive. There are a few things that you cannot spend state aid on, and there are a few things you can't do with CKLS money. So a lot of libraries used to, so if they would order books, and we'll just say from Ingram, they would write a $10 check out of their state aid and a $30 check out of their CKLS and a $20 check out of their general fund to pay the bill. That's way too complicated, and that's absolutely not necessary. Um, I would suggest on your state aid, you just do one thing with it, like just buy books with it. With your CKLS money, we always say the easiest thing to do is to spend it on salary. That way, at the end of next year, it makes it very easy to report that information. So you're going to need to know how you spent your state aid and how you spent your CKLS system grant money. Um, the two things with CKLS money, if you received them, that are a little bit more complicated, is the CE grant that you get, the continuing education grant of $700. Every library starts the year with 700. So if you spent 500, we're going to assume that you carry over 200. I'm going to give you 500 for the next year. So you start the year with 700. If you spent all 700, we're going to give you 700 again. With that, you need to track the CE events that you and your board attended and the cost to attend those. That can pay for miles to a workshop, hotels if you go to conference, meals at conference registration, things like that. And that can go to conference and to CKLS events. And then how any other CKLS monies were spent. We have 2 libraries that this year got processing grants, so they would need to note that on their system grant questionnaire as well. So our big tip is to fill out the system grant questionnaire first, then fill out the state survey. The system grant questionnaire is much less complicated. You're going to be able to fill it out at one sitting. The state survey, it may take you longer. That's the first biggest tip. If this is your first time through this, the thing that I would really suggest is that you get yourself off to one of the CKLS workshops. It's an in-person workshop for filling out these annual reports, and we will walk you through it and hold your hand the whole way through. Then the other thing you'll need to do, and I just said this, for this CE, is I explained how that works. So if you spend 600, we assume you carry over 100. So we're going to pay you 600 to top you back off. Does anybody have any questions about how that CE works? We do have a number of new librarians on here, so that's why
we have a couple of questions floating out there. You started a sentence and then you took a turn. So they want to know.
That's what Dayquil will do to you. Sorry.
That's all right. I'm trying to follow you because I'm also on meds, so it's as interesting. You took a turn you started off with saying the things that you couldn't spend CKLS and state aid on. So if you'll finish that sentence.
Okay, you cannot put it into savings. You cannot save CKLS money and you cannot save state aid money. Legally, you can save up to 10% of your local tax money, and there's no limitation on what you can do with memorials and donations. There's that one. That's what you cannot spend them on, both of those on savings. You can, however, encumber CKLS funds. And what that means is that if it doesn't mean I want to buy craft supplies in 2025. What it means is that I have already placed an order for craft supplies. I just haven't received the bill yet. More often it's not craft supplies, it's books. I placed an order the 15th of December. I know it's going to cost $200. I haven't received the books yet, so I can't pay for them, but I know I'm going to need to pay that $200 in January. That's what encumbering is. Okay. So there's that. Um, oh, I am wacky. Um, do you remember what else it is? You can't spend it on a building project
You can't
and
save it,
and
and it has to be
utilities.
encumbered by the end of the year.
I think, yeah, yeah. And that's that. Paula has her hand up. Go ahead.
Okay, so we're talking about encumbered money. Can that money, because I know, you've always told us to save back, the first couple of months for salaries. Is that okay to be encumbered for the salaries for the first couple of months till we get our CKLS money?
No.
No, not with
No?
CKLS money or state aid, not for that.
Okay,
Nope.
all right,
But
thank you.
That's
Gail,
okay.
can all things related to an employee, like their employee taxes and insurance and those things, can all of those things be spent, CKLS monies be spent on?
Yes.
Because I answered that question this morning, so that's a
Okay.
confirmation. And
Oh,
then
do you have another question or you just didn't take your hand down yet?
I guess I don't know how to take my hand down.
Okay.
And then the other question I received through the chat was the words ad valorem are disappearing. Can you speak to that?
How are they disappearing?
They aren't they're not showing up as consistently on the county tax bills the same as I understand.
Oh, okay.
So
Well,
they're
okay.
in some places it's
Ad
inconsistent.
valorem is nothing more than property tax. Ad valorem is the Latin term for it. And property tax is the plain basic English for it. So I can see that it could be listed under one or the other, but I don't know of any other terms that it might be listed under. I would love for somebody to educate me on that if they do know that.
So, our in Barton County, you get a property tax statement, and then down in your list of taxes, it'll say your ad valorem is so much, which is your property
Property
tax.
tax.
And then it'll have your other things that you're being taxed for, like your school district or your
Rec,
public library, or
community
if you live in the
college.
county, CKLS.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Um, Here are some helpful links. This is the CE expenditure form. Your CKLS questionnaire will open on January 6th. It will be pre-filled with as much information as you have provided ahead of time. And so if you have gone in and you have filled out CE for yourself and your staff and for your trustees, it's going to show up in there already. Okay. If you have shared your if you've weeded your library already, it will show the percentage of that. For the non-Pathfinder Central libraries, Liz requests that you send that information to her and then she can populate that for you. Then we've got the CKLS System Grant Questionnaire Tracker for this year. There is a link right to the state library report. That's the survey. Your annual state statistics, your Kansas municipal budget and revenue rate. And that is where, if your city clerk says, I don't have any of that information for how much money you got, you can actually go here and find it. I'm not going to walk you through that, but essentially you identify your county and then your town or township. And then you scroll through there and you look and see how much money you got for the library. Be sure you're looking at the correct year. Okay.
And that's one of those questions that you can call CKLS, and we can walk you through those steps if you've tried and can't find your way.
Go ahead, Abby.
So I see that a lot of the information should the treasurer should have it. So if the treasurer doesn't have it, I'm assuming I'm gonna be scrounging and digging and finding.
Probably, and Liz and I will be glad to work with you for that. Okay?
I'm gonna need it.
Let's see if I can do this, if it's gonna let me do this. It will. Okay, can you see this, my friends? We move this and make this bigger. Okay, we've got here, this is right here. Do you see it? The 2024 System Grant Questionnaire Tracker. And boy, I have a problem with everything. I can't find everything I need. Let me do that. Okay. Notice that along the bottom here, you've got different tabs. So let's look at number 2 and 3 for verification. This is the library. You need to select your library. Lacrosse, oh, Barnard. There you are. Okay, so 6 staff events. You need 2 yet still, or you need to report 2 to meet the standard. And the number of trustees to attend needs to be reported. And then you will have met your standard. So you can see here, this is what has already been reported. And then there are other things to be reported as well. This is where we're pulling a lot of the information from. And that is when you fill in that information, it gets put in here. So like every month, Diane Bott goes and looks here and looks to see if your library has met the standard for posting something once a month to your website or your social media account. This is your weeding. So so here's a good one. It's right there. And Sherry, you're right here. So you can see that the libraries have, most of them here have, yes, met the standard, but Downs hasn't. And it actually says, in order to meet the standard, she still needs to weed 29 items. So she has plenty of time and she can get that done. I'm going to come back and stop sharing this. Okay. So the system grant questionnaire is very handy. It's going to have a lot of the answers. But we're going to go now and look at the system grant questionnaire. Each person, or each library, I mean, has an individual link. If you just click a random link, it's not gonna
It
be
won't have,
pre-populated. It's
yes,
not
it
going
won't
to
have
be
your
filled in.
information populated because each library has their own work being done on the backside here at CKLS. So many of the questions, not all of them, but many of the questions will be filled out. But remember, it is your responsibility as the library director or the person completing the form, if that happens to be a board member, to check those details because we make just as many mistakes as anyone.
Right. Right. Last year when Liz was filling in a lot of information, she had COVID, and there was a certain day when she said, nope, I can't do it anymore. You have to check everything I've done this day. And it needed to be cross-checked. So we're going to look at this one. And oh, I don't know how to make this bigger. Zoom in. Good. One more time. Yes, go ahead.
So on that, the quorum of the library board participated in the CE trustee training. My board members all said they submitted that verification form, but we're still marked as no, not meeting the standard. So did they not get them submitted correctly? Or
If it was submitted the way it needed to be submitted, it pre-populated. So just you go ahead and resubmit for them. And you
Okay.
should also get the email back that says you've submitted this information to the form. What may have happened, and this is the part that's different this year, is that each individual person needs to submit. So if you have 5 board members that attended, 5 different times they have to be submitted. You can't submit once and have all 5 names in one submission. Was I speaking English there?
That you explained it exactly correctly.
The
So,
reason
Erica,
for that
that may
is,
have been what happened. But please go through and submit those 5 names individually on the CE tracker.
so what
That's how you
happens
get that piece changed. Okay,
if
Gail,
they,
you'll need to share again.
I will in just a moment. What
Okay.
happens if one time submits for all 5 people, it doesn't feed properly into the tracker spreadsheet. It adds all the names in one cell, so it can't count them correctly. Okay, let me share, and we're going to go to this one right here. Okay, this is what the 2025 system grant questionnaire looks like. And this is for lacrosse. Okay, I've started to fill it in. I'm going to go back and take all the information out, of course. So right away, you need to click on this that says, I will review and update all information in the pre-filled responses. And so what you're going to want is the system grant questionnaire tracker open in one tab and the system grant questionnaire in one tab. You will be required to put in your own email address, your name. You don't need to mess with your library. You've got it here. If you made all of the standards in 2024, this is the amount of money that you will get in 2025 for the base grant. Okay, so did a voting representative attend the May or September meeting? That's standard number 1. The library met the standard and Danae met this. So if we were to go back and look at that tracker, under the tab that talks about standard number 1, this information is there. And so that's why it showed up over here, is because it was submitted. We go to CE, you can see that there are multiple parts. This is part 1. Did you attend? So we right now we know it's no. So then you would need to submit a copy of the CE allotment tracking spreadsheet to Lacey. I'm going to say yes because they're going to submit 2 more and we know they're going to get it. Now, read this in bold. You're going to download this CE allotment tracking spreadsheet. It's a very simple spreadsheet. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, it's very simple. That it. The day, the name, who attended, and what it cost. Then you're going to email it to Lacey Steffen, and please use CE $$ for the subject heading. Okay. Let's see if it lets me go on, and it won't. I'm going to say it was 700. Okay, standard number 3, did a quorum of the board attend? So right now we know the answer is no. If the answer were yes, and you have submitted the information, and I can't remember what that deadline day is, that information would show up here. So right now we'll say no. Standard 4, does the library actively borrow and lend? Yes, and this information was provided already. Kathy Ron gets the report from Nikki Hansen, who runs the Sherritt at the State Library, and the library has already met this standard. So we can go on to the next one. Standard 5 has 3 parts. It's the summer library program part. And look, the library met all 3 parts. You had a summer library program For school-age kids is part 2. You submitted the schedule or calendar or marketing plan to the youth services consultant before June 15th, part 1, and you submitted the evaluation before September 5th. So this standard has been met. Standard 6. Does the library meet the standard? Yes. And we looked at the system tracker spreadsheet and we saw, yes, they answered. Let's see. Good. Okay, standard 7, weeding. We know that the library met the standard already because we looked at the tracker. Now, this part, if you are a Pathfinder Central library, this will show up for you. If you are not, you will not see this. Libraries that are part of Pathfinder Central, read this carefully. Your board needs to review and approve the 2025 user agreement. That needs to be made by a motion of the board and approved by the board, and it must be in the board minutes. Let's see, I'm going to click agree, because I want to get to the last page here. We'll say yes. Do you agree to keep all patron information private? Yes. And do you agree that you will make sure that your staff and any volunteers with access to Pathfinder understand the privacy agreement statement? Okay, here's the new part. You don't have a separate form for the expenditure report. This section covers that. So if we look here, remember you needed to know how much money you got for the system from the system for 2024. This spreadsheet shows that. So we're looking at lacrosse. Trick. The total grant possible was 19,000. They missed no standards. And here's how much they got for the out-of-district borrowers. So we know that they got 19,083, I'm going to say, and it's already up here. Let's say that they spent it all. They encumbered nothing. So I still need to put a number in there. Now we can go on. And here it tells me what you can't spend your money on. It must be spent or encumbered, not put into long-term savings. All CKLS money may be used for any public library purpose except for construction, repair, or debt reduction. And this is the same as the state library grants and aid. I understand that I can't do those things. How much money do I expect to get in 2025? Well, it's right here. So I can click next. Now, how will I know if I'm eligible for state aid? Is your library's funding body giving you the same amount of tax dollars that you received last year? Did your library's mill levy rate stay the same or increase? You only have to answer to pass this test. This is called the 2 tests. You only have to answer one of these with a yes. I'm going to go on, and Patty, remind me to come back to the 2 tests. So we're going to certify that we're eligible and that everything that you buy with CKLS money is available. So if you buy Hoopla with the money, because we do have libraries now that are already paying for Hoopla with their own money, and we have libraries that will be doing that in the future. If you use CKLS money on that, it needs to be available to all CKLS patrons. Okay, let's click next. and then you're going to sign and submit it. So it's just that easy there. Does anybody have any questions about this form?
This is Patty. Gail went at a good pace, but there's a couple of things. So for the seasoned veterans in the room, they're used to seeing two separate forms, one for expenditures and one for the grant questionnaire. So you see it's all in one thing. At the end of last year, we also added the Pathfinder Central questions to the form. This is the first year that the expectation is if you're a Pathfinder library, you go through the agreement with your board. They agree to, there we go. They agree to all of the things in the agreement, and then you fill it out on this form. This is the one that you also need to save because this is proof that it actually got recorded.
You
But
do
it
not
should
need
be
to
in your
send it to
minutes.
us.
Should be in your minutes. But you don't need to send another recording of it or proof of it because this is why it's here. So we're trying to make
Make
the
it
steps
easier.
easier for you, but it looks like we're asking for more things. Thank you, Mary Beth, for popping in to answer a question for me. I didn't get there fast enough. Some of you have asked me about the recording. Yes, we are recording, and if we're successful, we'll get it sent out when we're done. Because, you left Patty and Gail alone. Not always a good idea.
On cold medicine.
But so for those of you who are new, I wrote in the chat, don't panic if it doesn't look finished yet, because it's not. There is work that has to be done still on the back side. And because of the dates that they're due and the dates that the state report will open, some of this information will not get completed before the 6th of January.
The reason for that is because I told Liz, yes, you are taking your vacation, and we will do this when we come back in January. So there we go. Thank you for understanding that we need our vacation.
And that Gail does not give us a break. And we have to take our vacation or it goes away.
Yes,
So
you
we're
lose
taking
it.
our vacations. However, though we're on vacation, Gail and Liz and I still check our email every day, but some things are going to say, it's going to respond, I'm going to roll this over to do this the first week I get back from the holiday. It's not that we're ignoring you. We're just letting you know when you'll hear from us again. If it is an emergency, we're going to get on the phone and call you.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so we talked about, I want to come back to the two tests. If your clerk, city or township clerk, is using the municipal budget spreadsheet available from the State Library of Kansas, all the library stuff you'll be able to find easily. It has it seems to me, hundreds of tabs along the bottom of it, and one of those tabs says library. So when your clerk puts in the information for library, it's already happened for this year. If you have failed the tests, the tab turns red. If you have passed the test, it does not turn red. Now, that only works if they're using that municipal budget spreadsheet available from the state. Not all clerks do. However, we can still go and look. If we go to the municipal website, we search by county, and then we find your town, your city or your township, and then we have to look through the information. We can find it. Remember, you only have to pass one of those two tests. And the reason for that is because you've got a bunch of wild cards in there. The biggest one is valuation. So the two tests are these. Your library has to receive the same amount of dollars or more, always hopeful. If that's a yes, then you pass. Sometimes it might not be a yes. If it's a no, it's a no. The second question is, did your mill levy stay the same or decrease? And here's where valuation comes in. If your valuation went up, your mill levy will decrease because it takes less mill levy to earn the same amount of dollars. If your valuation went down, it takes more mills or a higher mill levy to get you to the same dollars. Okay. So that's essentially what the two tests are. It's a lot easier to explain it with moving salt and pepper shakers around, but we do have a really good document that explains how it works. And if you have questions about that, you send an email to me and I'll share that document out with you. It is, in fact, I think it's on the CKLS grants page, but I'm not sure. And I don't have the wherewithal to go look at it today. I apologize for that. Okay, any more questions to catch up on before we go on to the state report?
This is from the chat. Would someone be able to give the simple version of the proposed budget year possible loss of library state aid section right under the two tests section?
No, I don't understand what you're asking.
Amy, can you speak up and maybe help us out?
What are you looking at?
On where you go to look at your city's papers that were
Municipal
submitted,
budget report, yes.
right under there's a section called the proposed budget year possible loss of library state aid.
Oh, so what that means is that if you do not pass one of those two tests, you are not eligible for state aid. If you are not eligible for state aid, you are not eligible for CKLS money.
But I thought you only had to pass one of the two.
One test. That is right. To be eligible, you have to pass one of the tests. To be eligible for CKLS money, you have to be eligible for state aid.
Okay, because that's but I'm not fully understanding because we've passed one.
Then you passed and you don't need to worry about it.
Okay, so that's just thrown in there to be thrown because it says I have been directed to this section.
Right. You have two tests. You only have to pass one.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Anything else? Okay. We're going to go look at the state report. Let me share myself here. It's this one.
The first report that Gail went through is the CKLS report. Now we're moving to something called the Public Library Survey, which we refer to as the state report.
It has 15 parts. CKLS, as much as we are able, will pull information from that system grant questionnaire. The system grant, it's the big tracker. And we will populate it. Some things are already pre-populated. So this is for CKLS. I don't want that. I'm going to go with Barnard. You don't get a choice. I get a choice because I'm Gail. So yes, that's the right population. So you can see that this information here has mostly already been filled in.
Gail, you were looking at the 2023, so it's all filled in.
That's why. Thank you. I don't think the 2024 is not open yet. That's why.
It is not open.
We had hoped it would be open. So we're looking at last year's so you can see what it looks like. But the 2024 is not open yet, even for us, so we can't go in. But this is just to give you an idea of what you're going to need. So most of this information would be correct, but Abby, you're going to need to go in and change. If you're a new librarian, you're going to need to change the name. Did you notice when I hovered over this? Are you going to work now? There it is. I got a little pop-up window. That's an important thing to be aware of because for every question, you can have a pop-up window and it really explains what the question is about. This is probably the easiest one to understand. because they are not easy to understand. So part one is identification. It talks about your online presence. The library does have Facebook. If you have a website, provide the URL for that. That's your web address. If you have friends, meeting room, volunteers, do you charge overdues? Select the right answer. One really nice thing about this is that you can save it as you go along. Of course, I can't do that now because this is last year's report. But if I got part one identification filled, I could save it and then come back, which is nice because when you're working at the library, you usually don't have hours of unlimited time at the desk to do this. General information, you can see here, how many library users do you have? This is something that CKLS can fill in if you are a Pathfinder library. If you are not a Pathfinder library, you will need to fill this one in for yourself. How many hours are you open to the public? Usually that doesn't change from year to year, but you know how many weeks of the year you are open and how many hours a week you are open, and that's where this solution comes in. Your address, who is the contact person, and then your library services. Very basically, you report on how many visits you had. And did you count it or did you estimate it? We recommend an estimate based on a typical week. That means that in June, when you're busy because it's summer library program, you count how many people came in and out and you write it down. And then in December or January, when it's slow, you do the same thing and you average them out. I don't want anybody to freak out. If you'll notice, the previous year was 10,296. This year, for last year, for 2023, she reported 10,608. If the number goes down, don't worry. This is not a report card. That's the most important thing for you new librarians to remember. This is not a report card. This is a snapshot in time. There are a number of reasons why numbers go down, and it is not a report card on your library, and nor is it a report card on you as a director. You will report here in part 3, your paid staff, the full-time equivalent, your total librarian hours, how many you have total, that's you and any other staff you may have. If you have a library that has anybody with a master's degree in library science, you will put those hours here. And then all other paid employee hours. So if you had a janitor, their hours would go here. The salary survey is important. We use the salary survey for a lot of different reasons. So you'll put in the name of the position and the amount that they earn. It's not that we're nosy and we want to know how much money you make, but the way that I use that tool is to help librarians earn more money. And so we can see that the last library director earned $13 an hour. Well, that's not very much. And we would like to see the next one earn $15 an hour. And so how we can do that then is we go to the report after this has all been put together and we look at the salary survey for libraries in a town of a similar size. And if we see, say, that 90% of them are making $15 an hour, we can take that information to the board and then we can say, you're not paying your librarian enough. And they're probably going to say, well, we don't know where we would find the money. And that's then where I come in and I'll say, I'll be glad to look at your budget and find that money for you. So
please keep in mind that this information is not just collected for the state of Kansas. We're also looking at nationwide.
yes.
And so frankly, we know that we're being paid less because we don't have a minimum wage of $18 like they have in Minnesota. So, of course, you're not making $18 an hour. And so, this is information that is collated for the entire United States. You're just seeing your snapshot that looks at CKLS.
And we do use this information. If you get paid vacation or sick, retirement or insurance, put those things in here. Okay, now we start with operating income. This is where that information that we collected from the city clerk earlier was handy. What your mill levy rate is, what your total dollar amount was. If you're lucky enough to have an employee benefits fund, you'll enter that information into 6.2A and B. Any additional municipal funds or any indirect public support. This is where public support 6.4, if we hover over it, come on and show me. This includes goods or services that are paid for directly by the municipality. This is where you include things like utilities, internet, phone service, or capital improvements like new windows or a new roof. Include the actual dollar amount of those things. This is where you put your state aid, your system aid, other revenue, and this is where you put things like gifts from friends of the library, fines and fees, any interest or fundraising. This is where you would also do not include income designated for capital purposes, the value of any contributed or in-kind services or non-monetary gifts or donations. But this is where you would put any dollar donations you receive would go here. Any questions so far?
So where it says total revenue and it lists those numbers, is that what the budget like for the whole year was?
Yes.
Gotcha.
2023.
Is it the
20.
bold number or the number in the box?
So this is Mary Beth. The number in the box is what was for 2023, so that was entered that year. The bold number is what was entered the year before.
For 2022,
For
yes.
2022. So when you see it for 2024, that 74,755 will be in bold and your box will be empty. So then you have the
Yes.
space to rent that.
Yes.
And what you'd like to have is that total revenue is going to be, it's going to be an automatic total of everything from those lines above.
Yes,
So
that is the nice part.
have from your treasurer your total revenue that you had, and those numbers should match. So if your total revenue doesn't actually, if 6.11 doesn't actually match what you have on your spreadsheet, go back through that list and see where you didn't, where you could put that money in so that it equals out.
Right.
Okay.
Should all your revenues listed from 6.1 to 610 should then total your 6.11.
Yes, and it does automatically do the math for you.
Okay, thank you.
So your capital funds, they want to know if you have a capital improvement fund. And this is where I talked about earlier, you can save up to 10% of your tax money. Your expenditures, what did you spend your money on? On your salaries and employee benefits, on print books, periodicals, on electronic materials. Did your library spend money on any ebooks or databases? What other collection items did you purchase? And this is where if you bought kits or blood pressure cuff, blood pressure, at-home blood pressure testing, nature kits, those sorts of things.
Makerspace items,
Yes, that's where that will
puzzles,
go.
board games, those kinds of things can fit here.
Other stuff, yeah. And then
It's all the other stuff that's not print or e-book related,
and then
literature related stuff.
your other operating expenditures, and this is going to be stuff like, did you need to buy new chairs or a new vacuum cleaner? How much you spent on paper towels and cleaner supplies and toiletry supplies? Your Total operating expenditures here, you'll notice this number matches with your total, whoopsie doodle, total revenue, which is here. Okay. It might get a little weird. My husband and the dog just are coming in, I think. Your
So it's already
resource.
been a little bit weird, but we're okay.
Okay. Here we go with resources. And a lot of this information, if you're a Pathfinder Central Library, will already be filled in. Excuse me. How many books you owned, how many you added, how many you withdrew, total print, total audio, all other materials or those other things that we were just listing, and the total number of items. For most of our CKLS libraries, this will be pre-filled. You have your statewide collection, which is their different ebook collections and the Sunflower collection. And then Hoopla, if you've used Hoopla this year, and then any video you have. So then your total book will add up as well here. Okay. If you have public access computers, it wants to know how many computers you have and how many computer sessions were there. And it gives you that pop-up that tells you what they count as a session. Excuse me. It is okay to have an estimate. Does your library have Wi-Fi? You're probably not able to account for that. Our bigger libraries have software that does that counting. Circulation and programs, you will be able to count because you have kept track of that. All of your circulation, if you're a Pathfinder library, will be filled in. This should also be filled in from the state. Sunflower and Hoopla may be filled in as well. Then your total. Here are your interlibrary loan statistics, items that you borrowed from another library for your patrons. These will actually be filled in for you. Melanie is, you're going to have to add in your OCLC numbers like you did last year, because we just have access to your share it numbers. Will you make a note and send that to Liz as well, please? Because we want to make sure that gets into the calculations for resource sharing grant.
And Gail, we need to remember that, as we've said, the state library hasn't opened up this survey for us to even look at yet.
Yeah.
And so they're also doing their final end of year stats on Share It. So we do not have the most up-to-date statistics on borrowing and lending. And we also don't have the full year's figure on the out-of-district borrowers.
Yes, we will have that.
But we don't have it right at this moment.
Yep. How many items you lend out? Self-directed activities are like those, we call them passive programming. Then it's going to talk about programming. I think recorded programming is falling off this year.
That is correct.
You're going to need to know how many attended, how many programs you had, and it is broken out by age group. This information, when it's completed, actually goes to the federal government, and it influences the amount of federal money that libraries receive. So it's broken down by age. And then
this is Patty. You'll see that those age categories are appearing there now. For those of you who have been around a while, I've been preparing you for this. Those categories are now not just going to be summer library questions.
Yes.
So if you just get yourself into the habit of recording by those particular age groups, you'll see you have recorded programming listed first. Kansas Reads to Preschoolers, that's how many things that you did and how many kids you put books in their hands of. And then when you get to the program questions, you've got those 4 different age categories. And so just get into that habit of starting to count that way. If all else fails, guess. That's okay.
So these are your program totals. Then you've got a couple of things down at the end. It's how much state aid you received and how it was spent.
And you can see by that how much easier it would be if you were able to put your $612 in state aid all in buying books. Then I don't have to worry about all the extra questions.
Yep. So your state aid can also be spent on salaries as well. I'm not sure if 12.4 will be on the next question. If it is, I would recommend that everybody put at least $2,000 down, because the state librarian uses this to help advocate for more money in state aid to public libraries. The Kansas Children's Internet Protection Act needs to be updated and approved by your board every 3 years. So you can see this was done in 2021. It will need to be done again soon. Then everybody files the civil rights certificate that says you will not discriminate based on, I'm going to read it out, on the basis of race, color, or national origin in any program or activity receiving federal fund assistance. Or, we work for everybody. And then what is interesting, what we've got right here down at the bottom, is we have all of the notes that the previous librarian put, and that helped do that. When you have filled it out, you're going to click on the review button, and it will go through and flag certain things. And I can go ahead and stop sharing now. As with all things on the internet, you want to save and save often. But when you think you've finished, click on that review, and then it will flag things that still need help. If you are absolutely positive that you have filled it in correctly, do it one more time and click review. And if it still spits it back, give Liz or Gail a call. It is not uncommon for this to happen, and you are not at fault. We can go in and try it on our end. We do this with your permission. And if we have trouble with it, then we send an email to Alice at the state library, and most often we can force it to take it. Like we fuss with it a little bit. Remember, this is not a report card. This is a snapshot in time. That's all it is. It is important that you fill this out. Part of this is how you get state aid. And in order to get any funding from CKLS, you need to qualify for state aid. If you
Gail
find,
did point out that you're able to save sections and go back to the public library survey. The CKLS system grant questionnaire is a one and done. So you want to leave that open on your computer so you are able to get that entire thing completed. If you're the kind that is used to saving along the way, then just take screenshots as you go, as you roll through that form, just so in case something happens, you can go back and rebuild your answers. Okay. I have a message in the chat. I have a board member trying to resubmit her form for standard 3, but saying the links on the calendar for the trainings for July 16, 17, 18 trainings aren't open.
she doesn't need the links to be open. She just needs to
The event.
Put the event
name.
Yeah. Yeah. And worst case scenario, you can email Liz and we can go in and populate it if we have to. Okay, I know that for the new librarians, this seems like a lot. What I am sad to report is that on the state report, there are going to be a couple of questions that we weren't able to show you this year. I sent out earlier this year information about that, and you should be able to have gathered that up. And that was things like, did your city, your funding body, city or township or district, give you all the money you requested? That's an important one. If they didn't, you're going to put no. You may have to put in how much you requested. When this opens up to us again, I will find those and I will print it out and do a screenshot. What I forgot to show you, which is wonderful, is you actually can print out that whole state report, print it out, go in and write in with pencil or pen, write in your answers, and then when it's time for you to fill out that state report, you just do it like data entry. You just type in what you've written down. I find that to be the very easiest of all. And that is wonderful. There is a big print button up there on a red bar, and it says print, and that's what you want to do. What I also recommend you do is you print a copy after it has been successfully submitted. After it has been successfully submitted, you're going to get a big padlock there because it's locked, it's done. But you can still print it, and you need to put that in the file. And I recommend that in January or February, you present it to your board and you say, here's our snapshot in time. This is where we are, and here's how we're doing. And Gail says, this is not a report card.
This is also where the information is derived from for you to build that year in review infographic. And that does take a little bit of work, and we'll let you know when that is available to you. But that does give you a way to show off to your community that you checked out 13,000 items, or that you had 69 new registered patrons, or you did 47 programs in the year.
Yep.
You have to learn to toot your own horn, because sometimes somebody's going to come along and throw sand in it if you don't.
Yeah.
And so toot your own horn to your board, but don't forget your other stakeholders or your community.
Yeah. Yeah.
You never know who might be the next mayor.
If this looks totally overwhelming to you, plan to come to one of the workshops for filling out the annual reports. We will be there and we will walk you right through it. Bring your not tablets, bring your laptops. Make sure you've already updated them. Make sure that your passwords are good. You don't want to get there. Make your passwords. Did I say that? Wow, boy. You want to make sure you have your passwords. To view that master tracker, you have to log in with the Google account that you use on CKLS members at Google Groups. Otherwise, you can't see it.
So how these in-person workshop days work is, the reason you're bringing your stats and your computer is we will go through a short overview of each of those surveys, and then you will have times to sit there and work on them with having a team of CKLS staff there to help guide you through to how does this question need to be answered, or how do I find that information?
Understand what they want. I don't understand what they're asking for. Okay. We can also go in and see, what did they answer last year? What notes do you have? And sometimes you just end up putting last year's number in because you got there halfway through the year and you didn't know you were supposed to keep track of that. And that's okay too. That's okay too. But if you're new, I'd really recommend you come to one of these, because we go through, we fill out the state report after the CKLS report. Usually by the time we go to lunch, you've already finished the CKLS report. And so you have the whole afternoon to work on the state report. Many people finish entirely during that day.
Remember, You should be bringing a work laptop, not your personal laptop. And again, you're looking for making sure that you're bringing all of your library passwords with you.
Yes.
But the more prepared you are when you walk in the room, and Liz and I will send out things you need to bring and things you need to do in order to make the most use of these days. One of those events will be on January 7th in Minneapolis. The other one will be January 16th in Plainville. Our goal is for you to be as close to done when you walk out at the end of that day
Right,
as
right.
you can possibly be, because we don't want this hanging over your head.
If you're also new, we've got a couple of workshops coming up in the first quarter of this year. It's all about budgets. It's how to prepare your budget for the next year. We're going to give you the big red easy button on all things budget. Because if you've got your budget set up the right way, next year when you have to fill out this report, it just spits the numbers out. You don't have to dig through everything. It's wonderful. You've got a great little spreadsheet that makes it super easy, and it's a great way to get started off with your year. Okay, we have gone over time, but not too badly. Are there any questions, last minute questions for us to answer?
I want to shout out to Mary Beth for throwing things in the chat for me, because I'm trying to admit people and watch other things. And so thank you, Mary Beth, for putting on your old hat and helping me out today.
Thank you all for helping me when I was speaking through the filter of Dayquil. Yeah, at least I wasn't coughing and blowing my nose all the time. Thank you very much for being here. We can go ahead and stop the recording, Patty, and then we'll hang out for about 10 minutes.